Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Ketogenic Fasting Project. We're at video number 28, and this is the second one where I'm getting back to the basics. I know a lot of times some of my videos are kind of technical, and they're kind of for people like me who've been doing it for a little while, and they're trying to find new information about a subject they're already familiar with. I think there's a lot of gaps to be filled in the future, but that's not necessarily what everybody's looking for. A lot of people just want to get started or just want to find out about it. I wish there was just one book I could say, oh, just read this one book and you'll understand everything that you need to know. But that kind of depends on where you are. Um, for somebody like me, I was overweight, had arthritis, psoriasis, and I was really having a tough time. I'd been overweight for a long time. So I think for people like me, it takes more than just some basics in order to really make some serious changes. I mean, when you're really heavy and you're in a lot of pain, how are you going to work out? When you work out and you just you just have more and more pain, what are you going to do? If you can't take any pain relievers because you make your arthritis and your psoriasis worse, so you're stuck in a trap. So when you go to the diet, sometimes to undo some of that metabolic damage or distortion or whatever you want to call that, you really have to go to some relatively extreme measures. I mean, they don't seem extreme to me anymore, but when you consider that most people just go through the day eating whatever, more or less, they do seem extreme in that context. One of the things that most people will agree on, whether you're a vegetarian or a carnivore or a ketogenic enthusiast, is that a lot of modern diseases stem from things like processed food, seed oils, partially hydrogenated oils, and refined grains, including refined sugar. So that's kind of universal. So if you want to get started, those are the things to probably start cutting out. Just avoid those foods altogether. You're going to have to read some packages. Maybe if you eat at a restaurant or something, you're going to have to ask questions. A lot of people say, don't eat food out of packages and don't eat in restaurants, but, that's an individual thing. But something definitely you're going to want to do is get away from these foods. A lot of these modern diseases are linked to high blood sugar, high insulin levels, high blood pressure, and tissue inflammation. You really don't get coronary heart disease without inflammation in those arteries, right? So if you can get away from the foods that cause that inflammation, you can get away from the disease. So that goes back to the previous slide and avoiding especially things like refined sugars and seed oils that are high in omega-6 fatty acids. And you keep your blood sugar down, you won't have all the problems that diabetics have with neuropathy and blindness and lesions on their lower extremities and so on and so forth. So uh, that's that's kind of if you that's a kind of the concept that a lot of the modern diseases all kind of stem from the same thing. We eat a lot of processed carbohydrates. We keep our insulin levels high and we keep our sugar levels high, and that gives us cancer and heart disease and obesity and a lot of other diseases that are basically bankrupting the world with medical costs. So the basic ketogenic concept is that you're eating a high fat diet, a moderate amount of protein, and low carbohydrates. And typically the carbohydrates come from leafy greens. And a good portion of those leafy greens is going to be fiber, which you don't hardly digest any of that. So there can be a little at the end, but you could pretty much ignore that. So if you want to eat a bunch of spinach, knock your socks off. It's probably not going to ever knock you out of ketosis. I did an experiment one time when I ate a whole pound of cooked spinach. It didn't knock me out of ketosis. So If you could, kudos to you if you can eat more than a pound of spinach at one sitting. Of course, less processed food. A lot of the foods on the previous slide, the hydrogenated oils and seed oils and refined grains and sugar all come from, are all going to be found in um, the processed foods, packaged foods, stuff like that. So if you avoid those and you keep your blood sugar low, and you will keep your insulin lower if you can eat less frequently, which a high fat diet tends to help people do. They're satisfied longer, so they don't want to eat as frequently. So that's very helpful. The less frequently you eat, the less frequently you will release the insulin. People also typically find that their blood pressure goes down. I know I mentioned this before. I think I was in my 30s when I noticed all my friends had high blood pressure. I think the only reason why I didn't, even though I was overweight, was because I went to the gym a lot. So if I hadn't have been a gym rat, I probably would have had higher blood pressure than them because I was bigger. And all this will help reduce inflammation, which helps prevent joint pain, coronary artery disease, and it's believed that a lot of uh, cancers might even come from inflamed tissues. So that in itself, with the concept of the that cancer cells need sugar to survive, can help reduce cancer in your life, in your future. So I'm a big proponent of measuring blood sugar. I think that's a window into your inner workings that's really powerful. So I highly recommend it. It's not very expensive. If you can get yourself to, prick your finger or side of your hand or whatever works for you and measure your blood sugar, I think that that's some very valuable data. You can keep records. You could take notes as to which foods raise your blood sugar more, how high your blood sugar is when you wake up in the morning, and stuff like that. I think that is probably more powerful than any other thing you can measure, other than, maybe taking some body measurements to track weight loss and weight gain and stuff like that. But I highly recommend it. And I also recommend people learn to measure their foods. It takes some practice. I know people like to eyeball it and all that, but if you're like me and your health was kind of running away, it's definitely worth the time to learn to measure your food, understand what's in the food, do the time to look it up, see what's in there, keep some records, uh, have some idea how many calories you're eating. On a good ketogenic diet, typically people fill up pretty quickly and they're satisfied for a long time. So counting calories isn't necessarily the most important thing. But if you hit a snag, you want to break a plateau, suddenly your waistline's getting bigger, or maybe you have some other problem, you have some idea where you are. And typically people's caloric intake gradually tapers off when they're on the ketogenic diet, unless they drastically increase or markedly increase their activity levels. They typically need less food as time goes on. So another thing you could do is measure ketones. Ketones are constituents of fat, and they're one of the things that your body uses for fuel that's fat based. There's a handful of ketone bodies. One of the ones we measure is beta hydroxybutyrate. It's like measuring blood sugar, but it's a different meter and a different test strip typically. And when you know what your beta hydroxybutyrate levels are, you can tell whether you should be in ketosis or not. And it's kind of like an indicator of how much fat fuel you have coursing through your blood, feeding your processes. Now, like beta hydroxybutyrate is one of the ones that your brain likes. So um, it's not the only part of your body that uses it, but it's kind of the benchmark because it's the easiest to measure, and there's the most data on it. So it's a good thing, and there'll be others. You can measure your breath. You can measure the acetone in your breath. There's more and more devices coming out, and the information for that's getting better, and that helps. And you can measure your urine, which is kind of It's kind of crude compared to the other methods, but in the beginning, it's better than nothing. Later on, it disappears from your urine and you can't really measure it anyways, but it's better than nothing in the beginning, and it's the least expensive. The other thing you're going to want to do is measure your body. If you're going to start out and you want to actually lose body fat, or put on muscle, you might want to measure, and there's some good diagrams online. I can post some later, some links to them with this video later. I'll show you what to measure, and you get some idea of how frequently to measure, and keep a record of the changes, and that'll help you scope your progress as you go along. Another concept is just being fat adapted. After you've been on a high fat diet successfully for a while, your body adapts to it. You develop enough enzymes to break down the fat, the pathways in your body, so that the fatty acids and the ketones get routed to the mitochondria to make ATP to fuel your body. All that stuff gets streamlined. That's one of the reasons why you need fewer calories down the road, is your body just gets more efficient at it. So as that process goes on and you get fat adapted and you stay away from the carbohydrates, you will enter a state of feeling better, sleeping better, lower inflammation, all that good stuff that comes with the ketogenic diet. Now, just because you go on a ketogenic diet doesn't mean you have to get fat adapted. It's a lot of people's goal, but it's not absolutely required or anything like that. So, but something that most people aspire to. Most people on a ketogenic diet eat fatty meats and things like coconut oil and butter. They just try to eat natural meats, which a lot of people are health conscious, try to get pastured meats, grass finished meats, organic grains. Bulletproof tea and coffee, which you can look up, are very popular. And the idea is that these things will help you get into a state of ketosis. So most of us are born into a state of ketosis living on breast milk, which is high in saturated fat. So, if you want to think about it in terms of biology, this really isn't a very foreign idea at all. It's just that carbohydrates have been a popular fuel source for quite a while, and so at some point at large we kind of all adapted to a different fuel source, and some people find it better to go back to the fuel source of fat over carbohydrate. I also should mention fasting. There's basically two kinds. There's the intermittent fasting, which is usually 24 hours or less, and long-term fasting. Lots of people do it. It's a great way to keep the insulin down. When you're fat adapted and you're eating a high-fat diet, it's much easier to do, because when you've burned up your dietary fat, when you've processed all that, you just go right into burning body fat, and you don't get that hungry feeling. You don't feel tired. You don't get hangry and all that stuff. So that's a really good way for people to kind of extend their period of fasting, which really translates into having low insulin and low blood sugar. I also like long-term fasting. I know it's scary, and a lot of people say they wouldn't do without medical supervision and stuff, and maybe I'm stupid, but my first fast was 10 days, and I thought it was awesome. So I think somewhere on day 8 is kind of my where I start to get feeling tired or sluggish or whatever, but the rest of the time I feel great. And I'm glad every time I do it. It's like your body goes through these processes where it's regenerating, and it's actually breaking down all the damaged stuff in the state of autophagy and recycling things that it can't while you're in a fed state. So I think fasting is entirely natural. I think it's meant to be part of our biologic process. So don't stop eating on my advice, but I would definitely look into it. Intermittent fasting is wildly popular these days, and it helps a lot of people get lean. Your HGH, your human growth hormone, testosterone, and all that good stuff you need for rebuilding and being healthy tend to go up. People tend not to lose muscle mass during these things. I know I didn't. If anything, I get stronger. I work out fasted frequently, and it seems to be more effective than working out in the fed state. So anyway, something for you to chew on and think about. And like always, I hope this helps somebody. And please subscribe to my channel and stay curious.